Alright guys, welcome back. I'm going to show you a quick reminder of how to calculate the axis of symmetry in Vertex from standard and factored form. And I'm also going to show you the shortcut on the calculator if you have the Casio FX 115 ES Plus that we told you to buy. So remember that my formula for axis of symmetry is x equals negative b over 2a. Now, I then can use that x value to get my vertex for my equations. But in order to use that, I first have to get my equation into standard form. Standard form is y equals ax squared plus bx plus c form. So don't forget, I have to have it in standard form, the x squared, then the x, then the constant. So I'm going to give you an example in standard form first, then we'll talk about factored form. So in standard form, if I have y equals 2x squared plus 4x minus 8, and I want to calculate the axis of symmetry and find the vertex, I'm going to start by listing out my a, my b, and my c values. So my a value is 2, my b value is 4, my c value is negative 8. I'm going to rewrite that axis of symmetry formula, x equals negative b over 2a, and I'm going to replace the b and the a each with a set of parentheses. I'm then going to fill in those parentheses with what the variable was equal to. So I'm going to replace the b value with what it was equal to, which is 4. And I'm going to replace the a with what it was equal to, which is 2. On top, that gives me negative of 4. Don't forget the parentheses, especially if your b value is negative. A lot of times if you forget to put the parentheses, you'll forget that second negative. So make sure you put parentheses around what you're substituting in. So the negative of a positive 4 is negative 4. On the bottom, 2 times 2 is 4. So I have negative 4 over 4 is negative 1. So that gives me my x equals negative 1. This is my axis of symmetry. That's that vertical line through negative 1 on the x-axis that cuts that graph in half, or goes down the middle of the graph, so that if I folded it along that line, it would lay on top of itself. Now, the axis of symmetry, remember, goes through the vertex, so this is also the x value of the vertex. Which means I now have half of my vertex. I have the x value of the vertex. If I want the y value of the vertex, I simply take that and plug it back in to my equation. So y equals 2, and I'm going to replace each of those variables, each of those x's, with a set of parentheses. So 2 times a set of parentheses squared plus 4 times a set of parentheses minus 8. And then I'm going to plug in or substitute in my negative 1 into those parentheses for my x values. Because I'm evaluating, I'm now going to follow order of operations, or PEMDAS. So when I look at this, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do that exponent. I have negative 1 squared. So that's going to give me y equals 2 times negative 1 squared is positive 1, plus 4 times negative 1 minus 8. Next, I'm going to multiply. So I have y equals 2 times 1 is 2. 4 times negative 1 is negative 4 minus 8. And then I have subtraction, so I work that left to right through the problem. So 2 minus 4 is negative 2, and negative 2 minus 8 is negative 10. I now have a y value of negative 10 to go with my x value of negative 1. So now I know that my vertex is the point negative 1, negative 10. So here's the thing. There's a shortcut on your calculator. We've actually already shown you the shortcut. So if you have this calculator, the Casio FX 115 ES Plus, I'm going to show you that shortcut now. Remember that when we did this before, we talked about finding the zeros, finding the x-intercepts of the function using the calculator. So if I do follow the same steps, if I hit mode, and then remember under mode, if I look at number 5, it says EQN, which stands for equation. So I hit 5. I look at the third equation down. It says ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. That's my standard form of a quadratic. So I'm going to hit 3, and it will bring up a screen that looks like this. A, B, and C. So I'm going to put in my A, B, and C values that I had in my equation. So in this equation, my A value was 2, so I'm going to hit 2 and then equals. It fills in my A value. My B value was 4, so I hit 4 and it equals. And that fills in my B. And finally, my C was -8. Remember, there are 2 different keys on the calculator, and if you use the wrong one, it's going to give you an error. Down here is the subtraction key, not the negative key. Make sure you use the negative key that's up here. So -8 and hit the equals key. Then I have to hit the equals key a second time, and it will tell me x1 equals -1 plus the square root of 5. So if I was looking for the zeros or the x-intercepts, that's my first 0 or x-intercept. If I hit the equal sign again, it goes to x equals 2, or x2 equals -1 minus the square root of 5. That's my second 0. If I hit it a third time, it then says the x value of the minimum. Remember, minimum and maximum are my vertex, so the x value of my minimum or my vertex is x equals -1. If I look, when I solved my equation, I got x equals -1 as my axis of symmetry or the x value of my vertex. If I hit the equal sign another time, it will say the y value of the minimum is -10. So if I look, when I plug back in, I got a y value of -10. I can scroll back through those using my arrow keys to go up and down through my x-intercepts, my x value, and my y value of my vertex. Now, the other thing that this tells me is right here. It says minimum. That tells me that if I was asked the question, is that vertex a minimum or maximum? This is a minimum. This graph opens up. So that is how we do that in standard form. Next, let's take a look at one in factored form. So, in factored form, if I gave you f of x equals 2x minus 4 times x plus 6. In factored form, I can't plug into the axis of symmetry formula, and I also cannot plug it into the calculator. So what I have to do is I have to change that into standard form. To change it into standard form, I multiply the factors together. So I'm going to distribute 2x times x. And I'm going to distribute plus 2x times positive 6. And then I have to also distribute that -4. So plus -4 times x. And plus -4 times positive 6. Then I do the actual multiplication. So 2x times x, I multiply the coefficients. So the invisible coefficient is 1. 2 times 1 is 2. I add the exponents. The invisible exponents there are 1. So 1 plus 1 is 2. So 2x squared. Here, 2 times 6 is 12. X has nothing to combine it with, so it stays x. -4 times x is -4x. And -4 times 6 is -24. So, again, here I'm going to look at this and I'm going to say I have 12x minus 4x. Those are like terms, so I can simplify this further. So I'm going to have f of x equals, there's nothing to combine 2x squared with, so it stays 2x squared. 12x minus 4x is positive 8x. And then negative 24 has nothing to combine it with. Now that I have it in standard form, I have A, B, and C, I can pull those out. So my A term is in front of my x squared, so it's positive 2. My B is in front of my x, so positive 8, and my C is my constant, negative 24. Again, if you don't have the calculator, you're going to have to do this by hand. If you do have the calculator, you can do the steps we just did. So again, I'm going to show you in the calculator this example. So you're going to hit mode 5, and then you're going to choose equation number 3, ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. It brings up this screen again. I'm going to enter my a, my b, and my c value. So my a was 2, so I do 2, hit the equals key. Then my b was 8, so 8, hit the equals key. And my c was negative 24. Remember again, the negative keys up here and the darker gray keys, not down here in the white keys. The white key with the negative on it is a subtraction. So I have negative 24. I hit equals. So they're all filled in. I can check and make sure 2, 8, negative 24. They're correct. If I had made a mistake on one, I can use the arrow keys to scroll back through them and fix that. So when I hit the equals key again, it tells me that x1 is 2. So if it asks me for the zeros, my first 0 is 2. If it asks me for the x-intercept, my x-intercept is the 0.20, because remember, for x-intercepts, the y value is always 0. Then I can either use the arrow keys to scroll down or hit the equals key again, either way. So my other 0, my x2, is negative 6. And now if I wanted the axis of symmetry, this is where I get the axis of symmetry. My x value of my minimum is x equals negative 2. So I know that my axis of symmetry is x equals negative 2. That also tells me the x value of my vertex. My vertex is going to have an x value of negative 2. If I want the y value of the vertex, I just hit the arrow down key again. It says y value of the minimum, negative 32. So there's my axis of symmetry and my vertex. If you have some questions on that, you can get with your teacher. If you do not have this calculator, you will have to calculate them by hand using the axis of symmetry formula. The next assignment you guys are going to get is going to have some of this on it. So if you have the calculator, there's the shortcut. If not, again, you will have to use x equals negative b over 2a, your axis of symmetry formula.